Hi, everybody. Welcome on in. Give everybody just a second to join on through. Matt, as always, good to see you. I know it's not a long time no see.
You every day.
All day, every day, if you're asking the honest answer.
We'll just give people 2 more minutes before we start. Still seeing new attendees joining.
Always crazy seeing the numbers slowly climb its way up. Hello, hello.
Mm.
Yes, we will be recording this session and making sure to send an update to all participants after the call, including with the presentation and any Q&A answers that we answer during the webinar. Nice. All right, I think we're in a good spot, Matt, if you believe. Um,
Yeah.
to kick this on off, we want to thank our friends and partners over at Unspam for helping and sponsoring this session. Unspam is an email optimization suite built to help senders reach the inbox, from spam checks to blacklist monitoring and inbox previews, heat maps, and a bunch of AI-powered insights. Unspam is a great tool to ensure that you make it to the inbox. Check them out before your next send, and we again appreciate our partnership and friendship with Unspam. So without further ado, kick it off.
Right on. Well, thanks, Larry. So Larry and I are gonna talk today. We're gonna walk you through some holiday prep stuff. Very excited about this. Just a quick, if you don't know who we are, so my name is Matthew Vernhout. I am the principal advisor with Email Industries. I lead our digital consulting team here when it comes to everything deliverability, MTA configs, just general email consulting. We do it all. We work closely with Larry's team. Larry is our head of sales and head of account management. Um, his team works on client strategy, client account management, and obviously sales. So we do a bit of everything, and we split it sort of down the technical and strategy side of the house between our teams, respectively. So I always like to start because people complain about deliverability and they don't necessarily understand what it takes to get through A to Z when it comes to deliverability. Um, and, you know, there are lots of moving pieces that can confuse people as to where something fails. And all along this roadmap, if you will, become opportunities for messages to have a delivery challenge. So, once you've composed your message and hit the send button, your messages get signed digitally by DKIM signatures, and then they route off to the respective mail servers for the recipients. Those systems check a whole bunch of things. They check block lists, they check reputation filters, they check uh, third-party solutions. They also validate authentication as that's happening during that sort of message reception period. Typically, things are being done somewhat real time, but occasionally they're done post delivery as well, and then you might get a bounce afterwards. Um, as part of that, they're validating all of your authentication, which includes DMARC, so SPF and DKIM get validated to ensure that the messages are approved to be sent by that sender. At that point, DMARC policy can be applied. So they're going to say, should this message be accepted for further processing? Should it be quarantined? Should it be rejected outright? Right? There's no point in doing spam filtering if the message fails authentication. You can just kick it back out and say, we don't believe this message is legitimate. Then, once it starts to get ready to deliver to the inbox, then you're going to see some content filtering taking place. You're going to see some engagement filtering taking place. And then they're going to look at whether this consumer would want the message in the inbox spam folder, or potentially has that consumer blocked the sender. So there are a whole bunch of things that come into play when it comes to getting messages actually delivered to the inbox. It's not just hit send and it shows up on the other side, which is how a lot of people just assume email works. So, um, based on that roadmap, we're going to talk about the fundamentals of getting email delivered. So, clearly, the first thing that we always want to look at as delivery consultants and as marketers, we want to look at how is your authentication doing, right? And I would say the crucial part of authentication now, and certainly more so as we move into the future with future authentication solutions, is going to be your DKIM DMARC alignment, right? SPF alignment is important, but not as important as DKIM DMARC alignment. So there are lots of email platforms that control and manage the SPF authentication for brands on their own domain. And then DKIM alignment becomes the main factor. Um, and really, as a brand coming into the holiday season, right now you have about 3 weeks, I would say, to make any sort of adjustments or evaluations you need to in order to ensure your authentication is correct. And I would actually probably say it's probably closer to 2 weeks because you don't want to be making changes the day before a big send. You want to make those changes at least a week or so in advance. And work with your team. If your security team reads your DMARC reports, or if your marketing team reads the DMARC reports, or if you're solopreneur and you're not getting DMARC reports, use a solution that's going to start sending you DMARC reports and visualize that data so that you can understand, are you putting your best foot forward? Do you have authentication lined up? Do you have everything configured? Or, another good test for this is if you send yourself an email and you see it says something along the lines of like, Matt Vernhout sent via SendGrid, sent via Spark Post, sent via Mailgun, whatever it happens to be. If you see that, that means you're not authenticating properly. Plain and simple, that's your first step. You're going to be able to visually see that you're not authenticating properly. If there's a sent via, there's a problem with your authentication. So take the time over the next 2 weeks to visualize that and really start putting that best foot forward. Your mail may be authenticated by your provider, but it's not aligned per se. So you want to have that set up. Take that data point, review everything, get it fixed in the next 2 weeks to give yourself that best shot for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, the holiday season coming up. The next piece really comes down to the idea of what you're sharing on the platform. Lots of platforms do this. They use a shared link by default. They don't force you to set it up. There may be additional steps to set up your own branded link, whether it's DNS records, whether it's acquiring a certificate so you can get HTTPS links. But definitely work on being as consistently branded in your message as possible. So if you're from domain, your from address, and your link addresses are all related to the same Apex domain, then you're going to see that there are less pieces for reputation filters to evaluate, right? They're going to evaluate your domain once. Whereas if you're including your domain and they're including other domains that are maybe shared with other senders, they're going to look at those, and then all that shared stuff has its own shared reputation as well. So where you can simplify that and reduce the number of elements that are shared, the better. This goes from IP address to domain name to from address to links, all of the above. Now, again, I would caution, this is a big change for a lot of people. It may not be something you can complete before the holiday season. If it's working for you, fine. Put this on the calendar for Q1, right? This is something that you should do to help. If you're having delivery challenges now, definitely look at it. If your delivery looks pretty good and it's something that you want to put on the calendar to do, plan it for early next year so you don't have to think about it. No. This is that one piece that people look at and they say, how do I continue to deliver mail appropriately? So, mail filters like consistency. They don't necessarily like to see huge sudden spikes in volume. So, if your normal daily volume is 10,000 emails, but for, Black Friday, you want to send 100,000 emails, you should start ramping towards that volume now. There is a significant shift in filtering when they see something that, you know, multiples of volume overnight. Uh, it looks like it's something that's been compromised. So certainly consider that as we approach the holiday season. How do you increase your volume gradually over the next couple of weeks? If you are an infrequent sender, you're going to want to send slow. If you are um, sending to uh, a wider audience for the holiday season, really consider your segments and how you want to target people, especially if you're looking at lower engaged consumers of your messages. Um, you're going to want to send, a super highly engaged group, and then maybe you're going to want to do some testing into the less engaged groups, but don't triple your volume overnight. It never ends well. Absolutely respect your consumers. If they're asking for unsubscribes, process them. Don't wait the full 10 business days to unsubscribe somebody and think that you can continue to just mail them your Black Friday, Cyber Monday deals throughout that 10-day window. Legally, sure, you probably could in many cases. However, consumers, once they've asked to unsubscribe and you continue to mail them, are significantly more likely to report you as spam. So, nothing ruins a holiday like driving spam complaints and getting your messages blocked during peak season. So, honor unsubscribes as fast as you can. Make sure your lists are staying hygiened. If that means you need to pull sort of daily segments of yesterday's unsubscribers to ensure that you're attaching those to your messages, just so that if your internal systems haven't caught up, but your marketing services can do this real time unsubscribe processing, make sure you're doing that as fast as you can. If you can't figure it out or you're not doing it now, take the next couple of weeks to make sure that you can figure out how to do this in an effective way. And then obviously, this is something we've preached as an industry for a very long time. Right message, right time. Not every message is going to be valid or valuable for every consumer. So build those segments, look at past behavior of those consumers, think about personalization. All of this is very timely right now. And that window of figuring out these solutions is getting smaller and smaller every time we sort of wait to think about these things. So we want to make sure that we are offering right message, right time to the right consumer. When it comes to building your messages and making sure that those messages are effective for all of your consumers, right? We want to start thinking about things like descriptive text. There is a large portion of the population, even though it's only a few percentage, I can't remember exactly what it is, but there are a significant portion of people that are visually disabled or have vision issues. So descriptive text is certainly a huge thing. There are lots of AI tools out there that will give you visual text descriptions of your emails if you don't know how to do it, or you're concerned about what should be included. People talk about using AI all the time. This is a great use. Give the AI an image and say, describe this, give me the alt text, copy and paste that alt text into your message. Clear and easy language. You don't want to bury things in your terms of service that are going to, cause gotchas or issues for customers. Make sure it's visually accessible for people, including dark mode. Right? A lot of consumers use dark mode, or they're using time of day mode. So during the day, it's light mode. During the night, it's dark mode. And you definitely want to make sure that you are coding your messages appropriately. And think mobile first, right? Most people read email on their mobiles before they read it on a desktop. So definitely consider mobile design first to make sure that it renders nicely for people. Keep your images small, right? So for images, we like to say under 400 KB. You want to make them as small as possible. Um, Animated GIFs, again, try to keep them as small as possible. when it comes to sending messages, especially as people are reading them on mobile devices, right? These are going to be things that will continue to impact consumer engagement with your messages. If they can't get your messages to load in a timely manner, they move to the next sender. And then personalization, obviously, where you can send content that's going to be relevant to the individual in a template that is going to swap out maybe offers, logos, or relevant things like your nearest store, if you're able to figure that type of thing out and that's a relevant use case for you. Personalization doesn't have to be creepy, it just needs to be helpful. Hygiene, you're going to get a lot of new customers over the next month or so, next, call it 8 weeks even. You're going to want to make sure you're getting the right customer, the right email, and that you're taking the steps to hygiene that information. So you're going to want to make sure that those addresses are valid, they're not typos, and that they're clean to send to. So that could work in many different ways. Clearly, email industries, we build the Alfred tool for email validation, but there are lots of other validation tools out there that maybe you're already working with. Ensure you work that into your new workflows as we approach the holiday season. Nothing ruins a holiday like a block listing. So use your own metrics, right? People say, oh, open rates are no good anymore. Open rates are actually directionally wonderful things to continue to look at. If your open rate is consistently 45, 50%, and it's very flat and it stays that way, that to me tells me you're having really good delivery. If your open rate was 50% last week and it's 10% this week, that tells me your messages have all gone to the spam folder, right? So consider the metrics, maybe not as your key KPI anymore, right? It's not your performance index. You want to say like, oh my God, my open rates are amazing. But what you want to look at is your open rate trends. Those are going to tell you how messages are delivering, spam folder or inbox. Then you're going to want to potentially look at all the available third-party services that mailbox providers are offering these days. Google Postmaster version 2, right? If you've been paying attention, version 1 is being sunset at the end of the month, which is in 2 days, 3 days. And version 2 will be the only thing you have going forward. So domain and IP reputation, gone. But sender compliance dashboard, fully available, telling you basically the 9 key things that Google wants you to focus on, along with their spam reporting feedback loop and other information about your domain. Look at the new Yahoo Sender Hub. If you haven't set it up yet, go out and set it up. Talk to your ESP about, are they getting spam complaints from Yahoo? It's part of the Sender Hub, so maybe they've set it up for you. Maybe they haven't. Maybe they've set it up in a way where they're getting everything related to their DKIM keys. But you can set it up for yourself as well. You can also set up basically the new version of the Yahoo Postmaster tool as part of the Sender Hub, where you're going to get information about number of messages sent to Yahoo, number of spam complaints that you're seeing on a trend, and that service will continue to be enhanced as it goes. Right now it's web only, but we're looking into the future and seeing plans and ideas around how that could potentially evolve as the services continue to grow. And then, Microsoft SNDS. It's probably the oldest service right now that will tell you things about inbox rate, number of messages sent or attempted, what their filters thought of your message and how they placed it, whether it was inbox spam folder or junk folder, along with potentially even the occasional spam complaint data that you're going to see in SNDS. So use the tools. These are the mailbox providers telling you, here's what we think of your messages. Go back and look at them, evaluate them, and then adjust accordingly. Now is the time to start adjusting. I feel like that's going to be something I'm going to say a lot during this conversation is start tomorrow, start this afternoon, whichever works out for you, because there's no time like the present to fix some of these things that may be nagging you and causing delivery issues. When it comes to personalization, there are things that can be very creepy or very helpful, and that line becomes very thin. Like I mentioned earlier, useful personalization, near a store with the item, near a store where you can redeem a coupon, or coupon is expiring at a certain time. Creepy personalization is, I know you bought this. here's the other things that you want to buy. That becomes potentially very creepy when you build that level of profile and expose that information to a consumer. So you want to use that information in a more subtle way. So if you were sending very specific coupons to an individual, you want to mix it in with other coupons that are somewhat more generic to make it less creepy. And then that's, you know, something that's very sort of nebulous, but I think it's very obvious as well when you can cross that line between helpful and creepy. If you don't have consumer preferences, ask them or look into past behavior. You know, if you are a clothing retailer and the individual only ever clicks on children's clothing, tailor your messages at this point of time to be a little more driven towards that audience. If they only ever click on shopping for men, tailor your messages to be more relevant to that audience. So there are certainly different segmentations that won't seem as creepy when it comes to that, where you don't have an obvious preference section from an individual. You can look at past behavior and what they do. Also look at all your web traffic if you can. What do people do once they click on your website? Where do they go? What are their workflows? Where are they dropping off in the cart purchase maybe? And look for those types of things. Be aware of user managed preferences. So obviously one click unsubscribe, which we've talked about for the greater part of a year and a half, of 2 years now. This is something your ESP or your email platform should be inserting for you for anything that's a commercial message. It enables them to put the unsubscribe button in the UI, makes it easy for consumers. It's also tied to things like consumer subscription centers, which are now populated by Google and Yahoo. It makes it very easy for consumers to go through and see what commercial messages they're receiving and just click a button to unsubscribe. Again, process those as fast as you can so that you're not mailing consumers after they've unsubscribed. And then if you have a preference center, make sure you use it, make sure it syncs, at least I would say on a daily basis, if not faster than that. There's very little reason these days, based on how technology is integrated, to not be able to sync that information in sort of closer to real time than waiting days on end to make sure that it synchronizes properly. And like all things, giving you a list of do these things without giving a list of don't do these things, just doesn't always make sense. But over mailing is a huge issue during this time. So every company is going to be increasing their mail volume, but not every message is going to be increasing in value for the consumer. So if you're going to be sending a morning campaign with an afternoon campaign to segments of people that maybe didn't open or didn't click, or you're going to resend those campaigns, think about the segment and think about the audience that you're sending to. Try to avoid image only emails. They're not always, they work in some cases, especially when it's a very specific, small, singular offer. But if your offer is across multiple different products or services, try to avoid sending image only emails. Live text, rich text, alt text, all of that should be used. If somebody has given you their email, and I know this always isn't possible, but it's one of the sort of pet peeves that Larry and I were both talking about as we were building this, when it comes to, click to register for an event, click to download, and then the form says, give me your email and all this information you already have. Right. Don't put up those roadblocks for your consumers. If you already have their email and you're sending them to a download, if you're sending them to a offer that's tailored to them, just drop them on the landing page. Don't pop up and say, give us your email again. Be very aware when you're increasing that audience that you want to send to. The farther back into your dormant or inactive list that you go, the more likely you will drive a delivery problem. Right? It becomes dead weight. It becomes more opportunity for consumers to report you as spam, especially if they haven't heard from you in a long time. Do this with caution. Do this smartly. Do this with advanced segmentation. Suppress recent purchasers. Nothing more, nothing drives consumers more batty, if you will, than getting an offer for the thing they just purchased yesterday, but now you're going to offer it at 25% off. It drives customer support calls. It drives complaints from consumers. It's a bad experience altogether. So think about the ideas around who should I suppress when it comes to recent purchasers. And then link responsibly. So this was one that Larry and I were sort of joking about when it comes to link responsibility. But the saying from Spider-Man fits. With great power comes great responsibility. So the idea of link to the actual landing page, not just your home page, link to the specific offer or item. Ensure that your links are branded. Larry, was there any other links that we talked about? I'm trying to think.
No, I
Uh,
think that like the general hit, being careful of like, oh, you're trying to promote this feature product, but instead of sending them to the feature product, you're going to send them to some promotion page, some home page with content that isn't relevant to the product that they clicked on.
Absolutely, right? And that goes back to the idea of don't be misleading. So if you're going to say my offer is X, drive them to the landing page where X is available or at least described and discussed.
Right.
Obviously, being a privacy professional myself, I can't not talk about privacy legislation around the world. Um, there is lots of different legislation, which makes this very sort of complicated for people. But if your consumers are global, or specific to more than one country, and in the US, potentially even in multiple states, because there are fully functional privacy laws within a number of different states, some which align nicely, some which are potentially in conflict with each other. Be aware of how you are managing your consumer data, where you're getting it, how you're collecting it. Um, as sort of a baseline, if you are getting opt-in consent, clear opt-in consent from the consumer, you have functional unsubscribe, you have proper identification in your messages. Typically, that's going to be postal address and things like that. You're probably going to be okay, right? There are 100 different nuances, but from a core of how you collect that data and how you use it, get consent, identify yourself, make withdrawing consent easily. You're probably going to be okay. Protect that data as well. Obviously, we've all seen data breach after data breach after data breach. Work with your compliance teams. Make sure that you're being compliant when it comes to your messaging and how you collect things. Um, Data accuracy. So this is a huge one, especially as more people come on your site, more people are registering for that discount code, more people are registering for e-receipts, typos become problematic. Uh, Definitely make sure you're looking at data accuracy. There is a history, probably almost every year you hear the horror story of one major online retailer or another being blacklisted during the holiday season, and everyone's scrambling to resolve the issue and identify where it came from. What I've experienced over time is typically somebody gives a series of bad data points um, during either a checkout or a subscription period. Think about frequency caps, unsubscribes, send times, and how you're going to work within that. Um, if you think sending at 9 a.m. is the best time of day to send, it's probably not, because there's 100 other brands that are thinking just like you that 9 a.m. is the time to send, or maybe 1,000 other brands saying 9 a.m. is the time to send, where maybe you want to send at 9:15 or 9:25 or 9:45. Send it in a slightly off schedule time period to miss those peak hours. If your ESP doesn't allow you to set, 9:07 as a time, but you can do 9:15 versus 9 a.m., there's going to be a lot of people that are looking at the top of the hour, the bottom of the hour type sending. So make sure that you are thinking outside the box, even just a little bit, to avoid those peak send times. It will make a huge difference. There are going to be billions of messages being sent in a 4-day period, all driven by e-commerce, right? We're going to think about the Shopify's and the SendGrids and the Spark Posts. Again, like all of these huge SMTP platforms are going to be sending billions of order confirmations. Also, we're going to see billions of spam messages impersonating brands as well. So we need to make sure that's where all our authentication gets in line. Coming back almost full circle. But then, we also want to look ahead. We want to look forward just a little bit into sort of the future and where things are coming, right? And, AI. Everybody talks AI all the time, but AI is out there. It is doing spam filtering. It is doing evaluations of messages. It is determining where messages should deliver. It is adapting at a consumer level. It is adapting how an inbox behaves. Messages that I maybe receive, Larry maybe receives from the same brand may behave differently based on our past engagement with those brands. So, all the inboxing testing tools out there are fantastic to help give you a baseline with the understanding that an individual consumer mailbox may perform slightly different than the baseline. So I always think about that. I always think about phishing detection, pattern recognition. All of these things are being looked at by AIs and machine learning and LLMs right now. And what they're doing is they're enabling mailbox providers and anti-spam solutions to react faster to trends and behavior that is driving negative experiences for their consumers. So with that, I'm going to let Larry talk a bit more now.
Thanks, Matt. And starting off, with the holiday season, the dynamics, as we've been discussing, there's an intense competition for attention. Everybody's ramping up, and everybody's trying to get their offer in front of the people who want it and trying to get as much conversion as possible. The biggest strategies we tell people is that we need to be looking at your timing, segmentation, your personalization. You need to be making sure you're sending to the right time for your audience, making sure that messaging is something that is relevant and your audience should care about, and making sure we're sending it at the right time. So if you have the ability within your ESP to have send time optimization, awesome, use it. If you don't, start testing, understand what your ideal send times will be to get the most conversion possible. As Matt was alluding to, doing a on the hour, on the 15-minute during this kind of peak season, maybe instead of doing it at 8 o'clock in the morning, do it at 8:04, do it at 8:03, do it at 7:59. They're used to your messaging coming around that time, but the influx will be a lot easier to get in front of your users if you aren't doing it on the 15-minute mark. And then when sending, keep an eye on things like soft bounces and delayed deliveries. That can be early warning signs that you're starting to see inboxes get saturated and the filters may be tightening up and maybe wanting to readjust your strategy during that period. In this period, we have the shifting of consumer behavior. Consumers are prioritizing speed and convenience and value and having meaningful experiences. So you want to be focusing in with your messaging for decision or shorter decision cycles. People are trying to buy faster. They're going to respond strongly to urgency and scarcity and gift and social proof behaviors. So focus in on having shorter sales cycles. This is especially in this time of year, travel, dining, and gifting behavior spikes create opportunities for potentially seasonal relevant messaging. And above all, as we've been alluding to in this, is just the volume surge means evolving mailbox filters and more deliverability mattering more than ever. So ISPs are tightening during this peak season. Ensure you're following the best practices that we've been talking today. Warm up your domain. Don't go from 0 to 100. Go from 0 to 10 and slowly make your way up. Maintain list hygiene. Ensure you are sending to valid email addresses that should be accepting your mail. Send consistently, scale appropriately, and these machine learning algorithms are upgrading and evolving every day. So strong engagement signals are equals better inboxing or better deliverability placement when you're sending. Thank you, Matt. And then when we're talking about, multi-channel coordination, the number of brands that come to us that are like, well, I have an email marketer and I have a social marketer and I have a, display person. That's great. But at the end of the day, this whole thing we're doing in marketing is multi-channel coordination. So you need to have a playbook of understanding how do these components connect in a way that is meaningful to the end customer. So some of the things you should be asking yourself is like newsletter inclusion. Should this single offer I'm sending right now be a single offer? Is it worthy of being a single offer? Or should I put it in bulk and add it to my newsletter or add it to my next larger campaign with multiple promotions within it? Emojis, beyond Matt and my own personal bias, we strongly recommend keeping up to 2. It not only can affect your deliverability, but it also can, affect your brand image, making sure that like if you're not a brand that uses emojis 95% of the year, you probably shouldn't be one that's using it during the holiday season. Um, and of course, with emojis too, they're not always supported across devices. You can see an emoji with an Apple device and see completely different with an Android. So being mindful of that. And the smarter brands and the ones that are doing it well and are avoiding email fatigue are the ones who are cross-promoting their, email, SMS, social, loyalty messaging. They're not just running these promotions in silos. They're strategizing based on audience engagement to hit people in the areas they care about and not hit areas they don't. For example, like a flash sale. A flash sale probably isn't the best qualification for an email. You probably want to add that maybe to your Instagram story, or maybe that's some sort of maybe not even a TikTok post because TikTok will live forever and you're trying to have a promotion that only lasts 2 hours long. But reinforce your messaging and offers across other channels so you can increase the frequency of what you're trying to do without causing email fatigue and people not getting tired of seeing your messaging. The question I ask myself all the time is maybe this would be a good email, or maybe this would be a better social post. You'll also, where you can cross promote email opportunities and layer in opt-ins, we strongly recommend doing. Whether that's, a gift card checkouts within your reservation flow. Of course, this is the highest time of the year, and this is the time you can grow your list if you are strategic about it, meaningful, and then building meaningful relationships afterwards. And if there's a problem when it comes to support and escalation, that you want to create a clear way for users to be able to get help. Jumping through hoops leads to spam complaints. The number of times I buy something and then it goes, send me an email if I want to get a refund. Why do I have to send you an email to get a refund? I should be able to hit a button and understand how to get a refund. So making sure that you are making your support and escalation possibilities easier is more than key. Create reasons to choose you and your brand this season. Offer limited time offers, bundles, VIP perks, highlight convenience, order ahead, deliveries, pickups. More often leads and conversions on, the more positive signals we get, you help your deliverability. Continue to incorporate your branding and your messaging, but also, add in some humor. Try things like tired of leftovers, come for dinner if you're a restaurant brand, or things that would make people have interest in coming and engaging with your branding. And make it personal. Use segmentation, triggered messaging, drive people to engage with your emails. So just a tidbit I always like to throw out there, November 30th is National Unsub Day. So maybe try to not and keep your eyes up so you can avoid the unsubs. And then, just being aware of this condensed holiday season. This is our strategy typically in sending promotional content or sending email during this period. So initial launches, getting the initial messaging starting to go the week prior, and then really doing not necessarily resends, but new curated content around similar topics closer to the holiday period. So next steps and recommendations, I think we've, been nailing the head on here, but the email hygiene, making sure you're hygiening your contacts, list segmentation, audience preferences, really understand what your audience is wanting and segment to the people who want that messaging. Consistent growth and scaling, scale slowly now. Don't be the sender who goes from 0 to 100 on Black Friday. Preseason A/B testing periods are now, not later. So if you have things you want to try, do it. Monitor your metrics and prevent email fatigue. Cross promote across your different channels as much as possible to avoid over emailing.
Yeah, I think one of the other things, Larry, to think about really, and I like this for testing is test time, right? Figure
Yes.
out now when people are more likely to respond. Understand that during the holidays that people likely perform differently, but test. Like if you are a restaurant, test mailing at 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 3 o'clock in the afternoon versus at dinner time. If you're mailing at 5 or 6, it's already too late because people have already made dinner plans. But if you're, planning earlier in the day, or Thursdays, you're going to look at what am I doing for the weekend. Think about shifting your perspective and time by testing. If you're always testing, if you're a 9 a.m. sender, what happens if you send at noon? What happens if you send to a segment at 3 o'clock in the afternoon? Do they behave differently based on availability, schedule, timing of those individuals' day, and see if there's something that just through a little bit of testing over the next few weeks, maybe will shift your consumer behavior enough to actually make a real difference for your brand.
Totally agree.
This is actually related to a question that came up in the chat a little bit, but the idea of where do you go when you learn about some of these things, right? I know I've already mentioned the mailbox provider support tools, Google Postmaster, SNDS, and Sender Hub. All of those tools have resources around the mailbox provider requirements for sending mail to them. They have requirements and links out to documentation that you might need, whether it's an RFC to describe what list unsubscribe is and how it should work, or whether it's just like a general knowledge guide around, what is SPF, what is DKIM, and how does it work. Those types of things are available. Lots of different places have them. All of the key sort of groups, if you will, tend to have web pages as well. So like dkim.org is available. There's dmarc.org. Bimmy Group has a website, bimmygroup.org. So there are specific pages you can go and look to learn more about those pieces. There's lots of blog articles written about those because they've been around for a long time. And there's community in basically every social platform. If you search for hashtag email geeks on any social platform, you're going to find that community that is going to talk about these things. They're going to talk about trends. They're going to talk about problems they're having. And so there is a large amount of community out there talking about this. You just, if you're having problems finding them, the Email Geek Slack is, I think, 50,000 members almost worldwide. There's a number of LinkedIn groups. There are a number of different platforms there as well, where you will find your community and the people talking about these things. And as we approach the holidays, anything that's going to be on social is going to be much more real time. So if there is an outage at a mailbox provider, if there is an outage at an ESP, which we've seen in the past as well, both of those things are going to be talked about real time in social. Uh, Obviously, if you need help with any of these things, you can come talk to us at Email Industries, and we can help get these things sorted for you as well. But there are lots of resources, lots of blogs, lots of content out there to help understand, and lots of resources to help get you in the right direction if you're stuck or need help.
And of course, we wouldn't be selfishly promoting ourselves, but we do have to insert that in here. Right now, here at Email Industries, if you don't know us, we are a team of deliverability, 20 deliverability experts and analysts scattered all throughout the world, helping mom and pop shops to Fortune 500s figure out how to get their emails in the inbox and stay there. We're offering some really great promotional opportunities with our Authenticate for the Holidays and Be Prepared for the Holidays to help everybody figure out how to ensure they have the best strategy and the right setup to get in the inbox this season. We also exclusively, and this is the first we're announcing, that we are doing a sale on alfred.email, our email hygiene solution. So if you go in to purchase, use code BFCM at checkout, and you can get 20% off your next credit purchase. No, that's ever more important, as you've heard us mention it a billion times in this webinar so far. But yeah, check us out. Come say hi. We'd love to help find your challenges and fix them together.
And just before we get to Q&A, obviously we want to thank our partner and sponsor Unspam Email for helping us reach out, helping us put these events and sessions on. They've been a great partner to really drive deliverability and management and analysis of performance. So just want to give them a shout out. If you have any questions specifically to their services, you can reach out to their email. You can reach out to us as well through this email. And now, if there are questions, in the menu bar at the bottom of the screen, there is a Q&A option. You can ask some anonymous questions there, or you can leave your name. That's fine. So we would love to sort of just, yeah, have a bit of a conversation with everyone. But I think we'll maybe start with the first question. So I did touch on this briefly, the how do you learn about authentication? Like I said, Wikipedia is a great place to start. RFC is a great place to start. Um, and then, any of the communities I mentioned out there discuss and talk about authentication all the time, right? And we're going to continue to talk about it because in the future, we're looking at DMARC version 2, we're looking at DKIM version 2. So these software and solutions aren't just sort of stuck in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. They're continuously evolving and coming out with new solutions that are solving new and more complicated problems. So definitely keep tabs on what's coming in the industry in the future.
And lots of fun.
Um,
Want to start with that first one, Matt, for the anonymous?
yeah.
So when re-engaging dormant subscribers, what is the best approach? Try one last campaign or simply remove them? What metrics indicate that a segment is unengaged enough to stop emailing them?
Yeah, so I don't have a like follow this for everything. It's very much a specific
Use
issue
case.
per brand, or per list even. But I think if I were to look at the behavior of consumers, so if you are a monthly mailer and you only mail somebody once a month and they don't engage with your last 12 emails. They never open, they never click, they don't visit your website. You've emailed them for a year and they've never taken any action that shows that their address is valid, positive, or even interested in your content. That's probably where I would start to say that consumer is unengaged. You're going to want to build, I would say, a drip campaign that catches those people as they reach that milestone. So, whatever your milestone happens to be, right? If you are a daily mailer, you may say it's going to be 30 days of inactivity. If you are a monthly mailer, you might say it's 12 months. You might say it's 24 months. The difference is going to be at what point, and this is that really hard part, is at what point is mailing those people causing delivery issues? Is it 12 months? Is it 18 months? Is it 24 months? Somewhere in there is going to be that group of people that are just dragging your reputation into the abyss. Um, so build a segment, look at it and say, build multiple segments. Build
Yeah.
your, you know, I've looked at this exercise before with basically building 6 segments. New users, super engaged in the last 30, engaged in the last 30 to 90, 90 to 180, 180 plus sort of. Think about segments like that. You can send them all, but then also report on them because you're actually going to see there's a segment out there that just doesn't engage, doesn't perform at all. And you might say, that's the magic number for my brand is that segment that just stops performing compared to everyone else. And it's not abnormal to see a decline. Obviously, you're super new, you're super engaged, are going to perform better. And then as you go down the list and farther from engagement, you're going to run into there's that segment that does nothing for me, just cost me money to send the mail and cost me heartache when they drive my reputation into the spam folder.
And we understand too, we hear the pressures of like the CEO being like, I need to hit every single person list and hit all 2 million people. No, you're hitting people who A, could cause you deliverability issues, which are going to make you lose money in the long run for your whole email program, but B, hitting people who aren't actively engaging. So you're not making any money off of them, period. So it's better to find that window, create those segments, and then send to the people who actually want to engage.
And nothing speaks to be able to push back on the request of just mail everybody with data that says, look, if I mail anyone over 180 days unengaged, they do
Makes
nothing to us. They don't click, they don't open, they drive spam complaints, they drive unsubscribes, they actually hurt our brand more than they help. Having that data prepared in hand and able to show, here's where we make all of our money, here's where we make nothing, goes a long way to combating that just send to everybody argument.
Love it. All right, we'll go ahead.
Um,
Next one, which is what is the best cadence for newsletters?
I mean, this is very similar to sort of my last conversation, right? I guess um, the cadence you need to identify can be different, even for potentially different segments. Um, so if you think about your super engaged users and you have enough content on a daily basis, maybe you're a news organization, you have enough content on a daily basis to do a sports email, a business email, a general email, a localized news, an international news. Basically, build your segments. Send your daily news, your breaking news alerts, those types of things. People are going to expect that. Um, if you are not generating enough valuable content to do a daily newsletter, do a weekly. Um, and if you're not generating enough content to do a weekly, do a bi-weekly. But in some cases, you may do a daily content piece for your hyper engaged, a weekly summary for your moderately engaged, a monthly summary for your very unengaged, and have a declining frequency that you send people. You can always move them back up into the more engaged as they engage, but have them decline gradually over time. Um,
And
and
if you,
then
yeah,
test, A/B
yes,
test. There's no other way for me to say specifically for your audience other than A/B test.
A/B test
Um,
and ask. It does not hurt to ask and say, hey, how often do you want to get emails from me? Or how often do you want this newsletter? People, you'll see some people may want it monthly, some people may want it weekly, but it's always dependent on your audience. How about this one? How is AI changing the way inbox providers evaluate sender reputation and engagement signals?
Yeah, I think I touched on this briefly, but I think the key elements are going to be speed at which they react, especially to negative or bad content. Um, they're going to look at AI generated summaries. Um, so, uh, pre-headers were a big thing for a long time, building out the perfect pre-header so that it would show. But now we're actually seeing mailbox providers move to AI summaries. And some of those AI summaries aren't always accurate. So be aware. And I would actually start to talk with your legal teams potentially about adding a footnote somewhere in your email that says, AI summaries can be wrong. The content of this email is where we stand, or something along that line. Um, so you're going to see more AI generated summaries, more AI generated behavior from mailbox providers that are trying to be helpful to their consumer base. And that could be pulling offers out of the email and putting them at the top. It could be pulling offers out and displaying them actually in uh, the table summary of messages in a user's inbox, such as annotations or schema driven things. Um, but really, adoption of AI, it's still very expensive to run an LLM at scale of like Google or Yahoo or someone like that receiving that much mail. Um, but they're figuring out ways to make it cost effective, and they're figuring out ways to make it streamline their processes so that they can react to things faster, both positive and negative things.
Next one was, how do you balance aggressive marketing goals with compliance and deliverability limits during peak retail seasons?
I mean, segmentation. 100% of the time, I'm going to say segmentation. Not every offer you want to send during your aggressive peak season is going to be relevant for every consumer. So if you can send smaller segments that are more relevant to the individual, you can actually send more messages to people because the batches will be smaller. Um, This will not only help with deliverability, compliance is a much harder piece because you have to have some sense of where that individual resides. Um, but if you know someone's in the EU, you know that you have to comply with GDPR. If you know someone's in Canada, you have to comply with CASL. If you know someone's in the US, you have to comply with CAN-SPAM. Brazil has their version, the LGPD, which is similar to GDPR. Australia has a spam law. So you have to understand where your consumers are. And again, all of that goes back to segmentation. So better segmentation allows you to do more with your email in a compliant way during peak season. And it allows you to have those structures in place so you don't have to think too hard about, am I balancing my compliance goals with my marketing goals to say, this is my GDPR audience. I know how to treat them. Doesn't matter what time of year it is. I treat them all the same. This is my Australia audience. I treat them all the same all the time. Um, where it gets more complicated is data access requests from CCPA in California or from EU residents. You still have compliance deadlines you need to make. So that kind of ties back into working with your customer support team, potentially working with your privacy legal team and data teams to have those processes in place. That's the only way you're going to be able to streamline this during peak season and messaging, sort of the frenzy of messaging that brands will go through.
And my other thought to it too is back to the conversation of cross promote. Over mailing will lead to deliverability challenges. So in these instances where you're worried about deliverability limits, if you've sent that same discount code 3 days in a row and clearly it's not getting the engagement, but when you send it through SMS, you clearly saw way more conversion, it might make sense to reduce that frequency, reduce sending that kind of promotion, and focus that exclusively on SMS. Monitor your metrics across your platforms, test how things are aligning and performing, and then just try to think, does this have to be an email? Could this be something else on top of being an email or outside of being an email? All right. Another one that came in the chat was, would sending email from different domains than my brand be useful? Think brand.com used brand.net or email.brand.net or subdomain usage. Is that a good strat? Or is that the approach or strategy?
I would say avoid cousin domains at all costs. Subdomains are where it's at. Um, if I go to a website and I subscribe to brand.com and I start getting email from, you know, a subdomain, not a
Cousins.
cousin domain or a lookalike domain, there is enough phishing and spoofing going on in the world now that people are trying to distinguish, is this the brand that I actually worked with before compared to now? It's easy to buy a .io, it's easy to buy a .ai, a .co, a .xyz that impersonates your brand or looks like your brand. But if you have consent of consumers, that's not going to be the thing that's driving negative delivery. Use a subdomain where at all possible when you're doing marketing emails for your brand, especially when it's already consent based.
Good. Another
I think
question we
we have
got.
time for just the last two questions here.
Yep. As an ESP on the receiving end of complaints from customers receiving too many bulk spam emails too often from exploited accounts, we employ throttle-based deferring of emails. Are legit bulk senders resending now when they get a deferred response from a recipient's MX?
So by default, if you get a 4.x.x, you should retry for a period of time. Now that varies from ESP to ESP. Some it's 24 hours, some it goes as long as 72 hours. I've even heard some ESPs go up to 7 days. Understanding what your ESP's retry value is also important, especially when you're sending promotions. Because if you get stuck in a deferred queue and you have a promotion that expires at midnight, you should be very clear in the message the date that it's relevant for. Nothing worse than a consumer complaining that messages, arrived late and they missed out on an offer that they were really interested in or really sort of eager to see. Um, Understand, work with your ESP to know how long their retry values are, but also expect that your ESP is following the deployment standards for SMTP conversations that say when it's a temporary failure, they should retry. Those retries can last anywhere from 1 minute to several hours, depending on what the bounce code is. For example, the one that a lot of people probably recognize is the Yahoo TSS04 error, which is Yahoo basically saying your reputation right now is not good enough. Come back later. That's one where your email platform should wait a few hours before retrying. But if it's just 4.x.x, you've been gray listed, you should retry almost immediately. So work with your ESP, talk with your ESP, make sure they're doing these things. If you are an ESP and you need help with that, I'm happy to have my team look and talk with your config team about how to make sure that you're setting those up appropriately as well. There are lots of different things that can be tweaked. But if you're also seeing a lot of rate limiting, potentially you're just sending too fast. So look at reducing the number of connections, look at the number of messages you're sending per connection, which is going to be something controlled mostly by the MTA. So as a brand, you may not have access to change those, but your ESP should have access and should be monitoring those things and adjusting accordingly.
Matt, I know we said one more, but we had one other really good one just come in the chat that I would love to hit. What about no reply at versus send all email addresses like from support at? From a deliverability perspective, what should you be thinking?
I'm a fan of no reply when it comes to things that don't need replies. So this is your e-receipt. This is your password reset. This is your informational only message that nobody expects a reply to.
Right.
When it comes to marketing type messages, I am a fan of having a reply option that goes back to a customer support team or a team responsible for reading those messages. I formerly used to work very closely with a friend who was in the travel business, and they used to send from no reply and ignore all replies. And then one day they said, "What happened? What do people actually do? Do they actually reply?" So they started receiving and reading replies. They actually found that they were leaving a ton of money on the table because they weren't responding to customer support requests that came from a reply. So they changed their entire model and ended up making, on a monthly basis, it was definitely tens of thousands of dollars that they were losing by ignoring those. So in some situations, no reply makes sense. In other situations, no reply, you're just leaving money on the table. So use it according, is how I would say.
Right. And the last one is what tactics work best for creating authentic urgency without hurting brand trust, especially during Black Friday holiday campaigns?
So this one's actually super timely. So there was just a case in Washington State, I believe it was, around misleading or deceptive subject lines. So this one I think is going to be very interesting this year in light of that case. Um, I will get the actual name for it. If you're interested, you can reach out and we'll share the name. Um, but basically, deceptive subject lines are now going to be seen as being in poor taste and potentially cost money to fix. So, I mean, being clear, right? So if your deadline is midnight on Friday, hold yourself to that deadline. Don't be like, oh, no, we extended another 6 hours, right? Because that could be seen as misleading under this new case law, if you will. Um, so I think deadlines, even things like act now, but test them. Your list is going to respond differently. Um, Content filtering, spam filters will behave differently based on some language. But I think, clear, concise messaging that conveys urgency. Um, but also building things like, if there's an out of stock notification that you do send for something, maybe, right? Limited supplies, because people might be interested in that item. And if you have, 100 in your inventory, but 1,000 people want them, right? Act now, quantities limited is going to be very clear, and tell people those types of things. But I also think anything that's got a deadline, you know, is
Deadline.
something that you really want to put front and center, but then hold yourself to it. Like I said, if you say the deadline moved, well, it might show up as something that's misleading. Send a second email with a new deadline that says, we got more in stock. Try again, something like that.
And be careful with those triggered messages. Nothing makes me more angry than when I get oh, this is limited time only, and then I click on the link and the product's already gone. So be very timely in how you handle that strategy.
Unfortunately, sometimes you can't work your way around that if you're just, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've missed out on a sale because I read the email 2 hours after it delivered, and everybody
Right.
that got it clicked on it an hour and a half ago and got the product I wanted. So there are things there, proper disclaimers, limited quantities apply, deadline of time, those types of things are super important, I think, going forward in relation to consumer protection laws and how you promote things and being misleading or not.
So I think that is a wrap. We thank everyone so much for attending. Again, thank you to our sponsors, Unspam, and partners over at Unspam for all that you do. If you're having email deliverability challenges, reach out. We'd love to help and see what we can do to support during this time of year. Matt, appreciate you as always, and we thank everyone for attending and hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye, y'all.
Thanks, Larry. Thanks, Unspam, for sponsoring. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Bye.